Almost got the violin out for those brave volunteers whose ambush was ambushed. That line leads the argument. Across the comment sections, where loch-GAWL is still fought over, it holds the top position. 85 engagements, 47 likes, 19 replies. The sarcasm does real rhetorical work. An ambush is a trap, and these men set one, then walked into a better one. The comment asks the reader to feel nothing for 8 IRA volunteers who died in the village of Loughgall, pronounced loch-GAWL, in County Armagh on the evening of Friday, 8th May 1987. The reversal is real. The IRA lost the operation. The SAS destroyed an entire 8-man active service unit of the Provisional IRA's East Tyrone Brigade, and no soldier or constable died. But losing an operation isn't a verdict on whether the side that won was right, morally or legally. That gap between "they lost" and "we were justified" is the subject of this investigation. The underlying phrase, "the ambush was ambushed," cuts both ways, and it has for decades. In Republican retellings, it describes a massacre of men who walked into a trap they couldn't see. In British retellings, it describes the moment a murder gang discovered that the hunter had become the hunted. Same words, opposite meanings. The comment section is still arguing the point 40 years later. The question on the table: does the IRA's defeat at Loughgall make the SAS right? Unpacked, it splits into 3 testable claims. First, that British intelligence read the IRA's plan through a visible pattern of prior attacks. Second, that defeat meant the 8 men deserved to die. Third, that the legal record justifies the killing. Each test has its own evidence. None of them resolves into the neat answer the comment section wants. And the comment section matters because it's a measurable thing. One close reading of the supplied internal dataset, 50 of the most active comments, 608 engagements between them, found argument dominating. 393 of those engagements, 64.7%, concentrated in 24 comments that were actually debating each other. The numbers measure passion. They don't measure truth. But they show exactly what this single event does to people who argue about it. First, the facts on the ground. Loughgall in 1987 was a village of orchards in County Armagh. 282 people by the 2011 census, fewer then. Its RUC station was a small rural post, exactly the kind of target the East Tyrone Brigade had spent 2 years blowing up and shooting up. The plan for the 8th of May followed a template the brigade had already run successfully. A stolen mechanical digger would carry the bomb in its front bucket. An oil drum packed with roughly 200 pounds of explosive, some accounts say 400, fitted with short fuses. A stolen Toyota van would carry the assault team. 2 scout cars would watch the roads. The timing was set to catch the station's 3 constables at shift change, the moment when they were most exposed. 8 men were assigned to the attack. Patrick Kelly, 30, commanded, the brigade's most experienced operator. Jim Liner, 31, and Padraig McKerney, 32, had been part of the Birches attack 10 months earlier. Declan Arthurs, 21, had driven the digger that day too. He learned to operate machinery on his family farm. Seamus Donnelly was 19. Gerard O'Callaghan, Tony Gormley, and Eugene Kelly completed the team. They wore coveralls, balaclavas and surgical gloves, and pulled socks over their shoes to hide their footprints. They needn't have bothered. The convoy arrives around 7:15 p.m. The scout cars make 2 passes to assess the station. It looks abandoned. Some of the men argue for aborting the mission. Others want to push on. One of the scouts, watching from an escape car, spots an SAS helicopter in the distance and says, "There's something badly wrong here." Patrick Kelly makes the call, in the recollection of a surviving scout, "Go in and blow the barracks up and fire a few rounds." What the unit can't see is that the SAS is already inside the perimeter. Operation Judy had positioned the security forces around the station. The European Court of Human Rights case documents put the force at 24 soldiers and 3 RUC constables. Narrative accounts describe 6 soldiers inside the station, with the 3 policemen on duty, and 18 more hidden behind walls and trees. Some accounts describe a larger force of up to 36. The official headcount has never been fully published. What is documented is a 3-point kill zone. Arcs of fire arranged so the soldiers could engage the entire attacking unit without shooting each other. The digger crashes through the perimeter fence. Declan Arthurs lights the fuses. Kelly's team jumps from the van and rakes the station with automatic fire. Then the SAS opens fire, and the engagement becomes a one-way torrent. Narrative accounts describe it as lasting a few seconds, or several minutes, or as long as 10. The precise duration was never fixed by primary records. One survivor, watching from the scout cars, remembered 3 or 4 minutes of sustained gunfire. "It went on and on and on," he said. "It was fierce firing." When it stopped, all 8 IRA men were dead. The 1995 inquest established that all 9 people killed that evening died from multiple gunshot wounds, not the bomb blast. The ballistic accounting, the IRA fired roughly 78 rounds. The SAS and RUC fired more than 600 by the official report. Some accounts put the figure above 1,200. Spent British cartridge cases were later described as scattered like confetti at a wedding. The van alone carried 125 bullet holes. Then there was Anthony Hughes. The 36-year-old auto repairman was driving home with his brother Oliver in a white Citroën when the car entered the ambush zone. The SAS, in some accounts, mistook it for an IRA support vehicle. Anthony was killed. Oliver was hit 14 times and survived. Neither man had any connection to the IRA. The British government paid compensation for Anthony's death. Loch-GAWL was the IRA's single greatest loss of life in the Troubles, and its largest since 12 volunteers died at Clonmalt, County Cork, in 1921. The Los Angeles Times called it the worst single defeat suffered by the IRA since the current guerrilla war began. The aftermath split immediately down familiar lines. The IRA's statement claimed some volunteers had escaped. The security forces said none had. Petrol bombs went through West Belfast on the 10th of May. Republican commemorations still speak of the Loughgall martyrs. One anniversary tribute honoured 8 gallant Irishmen who gave their lives at Loughgall. British commentary calls the operation one of the SAS's most successful of the conflict. Both sides use the same fact, the complete destruction of the attacking unit, to feed opposite conclusions. That is the baseline. Now the tests. Test 1. Did the pattern give them away? By 1987, the SAS's undercover war in Northern Ireland was more than a decade old. The regiment had been running plain-clothes operations since the late 1970s inside the Army's broader Operation Banner deployment that would last until 2007. Unit training for Ulster tours, conducted at Lydd and Hythe in Kent, drilled a brutal statistic into every soldier. An encounter with the IRA would give him about 4 seconds of exposed standing time to engage a running man. Loch-GAWL was that discipline applied at scale. A prepared kill zone, fixed arcs of fire, and no hesitation. By the mid-1980s, the East Tyrone Brigade had given the security forces reason to develop exactly that capacity. It was running a deliberate campaign against the province's most exposed stations, destroying remote rural posts and preventing their rebuilding, carving out de facto no-go areas. From 1985 onward, the IRA destroyed 33 security facilities and seriously damaged nearly 100 more, many of them rural RUC and Army bases. The sequence is documented, attack by attack. 7 December 1985, Ballygawley, County Tyrone. Around 7 in the evening, at the end of a shift, Reserve Constable William James Clements and Constable George Gilliland shot dead at the front gate. A bomb destroyed the station, 3 officers wounded. 12 days later, Castle Derg. The same brigade mortared the station, badly damaging it and injuring 4 people. 1st February 1986, Coal Island. A van bomb of at least £500 detonated outside, wrecking the building and nearby houses. 11th August 1986, the Birches, near Portadown. This was the template. A stolen JCB digger with a £200 bomb in its front bucket smashed through the perimeter fence. Gunmen raked the building with automatic fire. The bomb levelled it. The station was unmanned at the time. 3 civilians were injured. Declan Arthurs drove the digger. A simultaneous attack on Pomeroy Station was meant to draw security forces away. Inside the IRA, the Birches was judged a huge success, and the brigade planned to use the same trick again. 8th May 1987, Loughgall. Same tactic, same method, same team. Stolen digger, bomb in the bucket, van full of gunmen, evening arrival timed against the shift change. Modern narrative accounts of the operation put it bluntly. British intelligence had been watching the pattern build. This is how they got caught. That sentence deserves scrutiny because it isn't from a declassified file or an official intelligence assessment. It's a summary written long after the event by commentators reconstructing what the IRA's own operations made visible. The pattern wasn't subtle. Small rural stations, evening operations, big bombs, automatic fire. The East Tyrone Brigade had shown the same signature 3 times in 17 months. What the public record shows is that the security forces were alive to that signature by May 1987. Operation Judy was built around it. What the public record does not show is the intelligence chain that put those soldiers behind the walls on the right evening. Informers, surveillance, signals, intercepts, a combination. None of it has been fully disclosed. The Pat Finucane Centre argues the British knew of the Loch-GAWL plan weeks in advance and made no attempt to arrest the attackers before they struck, an accusation that, if true, would change the legal picture. That version can't be verified from open sources. How much did the security forces actually know before the digger reached the fence? The honest answer is a bounded one. The pattern was readable. This attack followed it. The security forces positioned themselves accordingly. That is a pattern recognition argument, and it isn't a complete intelligence chain. It says nothing yet about whether killing rather than arresting was lawful. That question belongs to Test 3. Test 2 is the one the comment section actually cares about. Did defeat make the deaths deserved? The argument splits into 2 emotional camps. One says, they deserved what they got. The other says, Irish heroes, freedom fighters, brave volunteers. The second largest pool of engagement in those threads clusters around the word brave. 161 engagements across 8 comments, even though only 3 of those comments are ever quoted directly. That gap matters. Engagement counts measure how much a comment moved people to react. They don't measure whether the reaction is true. The desert position has genuine factual fuel. The men killed at Loughgall weren't innocents. The unit's weapons were later linked by a Royal Ulster Constabulary report to 7 known murders and 12 attempted murders in the mid-Ulster region. The unit was in the middle of a campaign that had already been killing for years. Whatever else the 8 men were, they weren't beginners caught in the wrong place. The strongest version of the desert argument is straightforward. Men who drive a 200-pound bomb toward a police station with 3 officers inside forfeit the protection they would otherwise claim. The Historical Inquiries team supplied the groundwork when it found the IRA fired first and the SAS was within its rights. And the sentiment predates the comment sections. In 2007, DUP politician Gregory Campbell said the 8 men deserved to die, and drew criticism for saying it out loud. The online argument isn't inventing this position, it's inheriting it. The Republican objection is equally serious, and it attacks the assumption that winning a firefight settles desert. Operational competence does not automatically justify every action by the winning side. Republican framing describes the dead as 8 volunteers of the East Tyrone Brigade who died on active service while launching an attack at Loch-GAWL RUC barracks, surrounded by Crown forces who heavily outnumbered the volunteers. The Pat Finucane Centre calls the killings murder, and the SAS judge, jury and executioner. Irish Republican supporters in the United States wrote to the Irish government at the time in similar terms. The volunteers were Irishmen fighting on Irish soil for the freedom of a portion of Ireland, and the barracks they attacked was an illegitimate fort. The split was visible even inside the Catholic Church establishment. Bishop Edward Daly told Irish officials he was struck by the lack of sympathy in the Derry area with the dead IRA men, whom he described as armed to the teeth. Bishop Joseph Duffy, who refused to let Sinn Féin organise Jim Liner's funeral, was told the dead man was regarded locally as a madman. That was 1987. The comment sections aren't the first battlefield for this argument, they are the latest one. There are documented facts that complicate any clean desert verdict. 2 of the dead, Declan Arthurs and Gerard O'Callaghan, were unarmed when they were killed, according to one account. The ammunition imbalance is undisputed. More than 600 rounds fired by the security forces, some say 1,200, against roughly 78 from the IRA. Whether every man died while actively fighting, or some after they were down, depends on which account you read. Tim Pat Coogan alleged in 1995 that wounded IRA men were shot on the ground after the firing stopped. No judicial finding has ever confirmed that. One scout who survived, watching the kill zone from an escape car, had no doubt about what he'd seen. "I knew they were wiped out at the time," he later said. "I could see the carnage down at the van. I have no doubt it was a shoot-to-kill operation. It was a turkey shoot." That phrase, turkey shoot, is the Republican case in 2 words. The security forces, in this telling, didn't need to kill 8 men to stop an attack. They chose to. Another survivor pointed at the decision itself. They let the bomb through and they waited 10 minutes because they wanted them in the kill zone. There was ample time for arrests to be made. And brave. Courage is a human quality, and it can be acknowledged without endorsing the cause it served. But courage does not legitimize a politically motivated attack on a police station, any more than competence legitimizes everything the SAS did that evening. The brave frame and the deserved it frame are both moral claims dressed as descriptions. Neither is proven by its engagement count. The hinge of the whole desert argument, who fired first, is itself contested. The Historical Inquiries Team, the police unit created to examine unresolved Troubles killings, reviewed the case with access to materials the public never saw. It concluded in 2011 that the IRA opened fire first. The BBC reported that finding. Republican and human rights accounts maintain the SAS opened fire first, as part of a pre-planned shoot-to-kill ambush, designed to kill rather than arrest. Both versions carry institutional weight. The public record does not dissolve the contradiction. So Test 2 does not deliver a verdict. It delivers a collision. A unit with blood on its weapons, killed inside an active bombing attack, versus a state force that appears to have decided to kill rather than arrest, with 2 unarmed dead and 1 dead civilian inside its kill zone. The desert argument survives contact with the facts. It does not survive them cleanly. And that is exactly what engagement data can't resolve. The comment that led the argument, the violin line, is a moral ruling delivered as a joke. It moved people. That does not make it right. Before the legal test, the comment sections raise one more accusation. It needs to be handled precisely because it's so often mishandled. The Adams question. 6 comments, 42 engagements, 1 name, Gerry Adams. The range runs from Adams setting the ambush up to outright disbelief that Adams tipped off MI5. The accusation exists in the historical record as an unresolved rumour. Declassified 1987 state papers include a letter, purportedly from the UVF, claiming Adams set up the IRA gang. Monsignor Dennis Fall, the Dungannon priest and human rights activist who had blamed Adams for the end of the 1981 hunger strikes, passed similar rumours to the Irish government, that Adams had arranged for the East Tyrone unit to be wiped out, possibly after internal disputes. Fall, who had been at school with Padraig McKerney, told Irish officials the theory was that Liner and McKerney had threatened to execute Adams shortly before the Loughgall event. The suspicion didn't arise from nothing. By the late 1980s, East Tyrone was one of the most penetrated areas of the IRA's entire structure. A former British intelligence handler claimed that in Derry alone, 1 in 6 IRA volunteers worked for the Army's Force Research Unit. The informer scandal that eventually broke around the agent known as Stakeknife, the deputy head of the IRA's own internal security unit, showed what the British could do inside the organisation. In that environment, a rumour that the Sinn Féin president had traded an active service unit for political advantage was always going to find believers. Sinn Féin's response has been consistent. Utter nonsense. No publicly available evidence confirms that Adams tipped off anyone. What is on the record is that Adams delivered the graveside eulogy at Jim Liner's funeral, telling mourners the British can't defeat men like Liner, as thousands of Republican mourners gathered behind him. The 6 comments show dispute, not betrayal. The numbers measure the temperature of a disagreement. They don't establish a fact. That section ends there, because the evidence ends there. Test 3. Does the law call it justified? The legal record on Loughgall is the most frequently misquoted part of the story, in both directions. What does it actually establish? Domestically, in 1987, British soldiers in Northern Ireland were subject to the ordinary criminal law. Lethal force had to be reasonable in the circumstances, as the soldier honestly believed them to be. A police station under armed attack by a unit that had killed police officers before is, by most readings, a textbook case for self-defence and defence of others. The Historical Inquiries team reached that conclusion. It found the IRA opened fire first, that the attackers couldn't be safely arrested, and that the SAS was within its rights to shoot the 8 IRA men. The Director of Public Prosecutions for Northern Ireland received the RUC's report on the 21st of July 1988, and on the 22nd of September 1988 decided there was insufficient evidence to prosecute any individual. No SAS soldier has ever been publicly named or prosecuted for the Loughgall killings. International law applies a stricter frame. Article 2 of the European Convention on Human Rights permits lethal force only when it's no more than absolutely necessary, in defence of a person from unlawful violence, to effect a lawful arrest, or to quell a riot or insurrection. And since McCann v United Kingdom, the 1996 judgment on the SAS killings in Gibraltar, the law does not stop at the moment of the shooting. The court held that an operation must be planned and controlled to minimise, to the greatest extent possible, resort to lethal force. In Gibraltar, 3 unarmed IRA members had been shot dead in the street. The court found the planning of the operation itself violated Article 2. At Loch-GAWL, the state allowed an armed unit to cross a perimeter fence and start its attack before opening fire. Under the McCann standard, that planning decision is exactly what a court is supposed to examine. The families of the 9 dead took the case to Strasbourg. Kelly and others v United Kingdom, application 30054/96, judgment of the 4th of May 2001. The European Court of Human Rights found a violation of Article 2. Here is where the record gets mangled. The court's finding was procedural, not substantive. It held that the investigation into the deaths, the inquest, the lack of independence from the police, the refusal to compel witnesses, the failure to scrutinise the military's account, fell below the minimum standards Article 2 requires. The court's case law, built across a series of Northern Ireland killings including Jordan, McCurr and Shanahan, set out what an Article 2 investigation must be: independent, prompt, effective and open to scrutiny by the next of kin. By that standard, the Loughgall investigation failed on several counts at once. The court awarded £10,000 to each applicant, plus £30,000 in costs. It didn't rule that the soldiers' use of lethal force was substantively unlawful. The court didn't say the shootings violated Article 2. It said the state's investigation of them did. Both comment armies overstate this. The European Court cleared the SAS is false. The European Court ruled the SAS operation unlawful is also false. The judgment occupies a middle. The killings were never declared unlawful, and the state's handling of them was found defective. The civilian death sharpens the unresolved edge. Anthony Hughes was killed by SAS gunfire. Whether he died in crossfire or from direct fire at a mistaken target is contested. Either way, an uninvolved civilian died inside a state ambush, and the state paid compensation for that death. The 1995 inquest returned a verdict that all 9 died from gunshot wounds. A High Court refused to quash that outcome on the 24th of May 1996. In 2015, a High Court judge granted Hughes's widow leave to challenge the government's handling of fresh inquests, noting an arguable case on ECHR grounds. New inquests into all 9 deaths were ordered the same year. Whether a warning was required before opening fire, a standard element of any use of lethal force, is undocumented. No source records a warning being given. In the middle of an active bombing attack, a challenge may have been impracticable. The record simply does not say. So Test 3 yields a genuinely mixed record. One official body found the killings justified as to the 8 IRA men. The prosecution service declined to charge anyone. The European Court found the investigation defective and stayed silent on the shootings themselves. A legal system that can't produce a single definitive answer does not authorise the certainty of the comment section. Loch-GAWL didn't end the East Tyrone Brigade. The dead included its most experienced commanders, Kelly, Linner, McKerney, but the brigade regrouped and the pattern of attack continued. 6 months to the day after the Loch-GAWL fight, on Remembrance Day, the IRA bombed Enniskillen, killing 11 people, a constable and 10 civilians, including a pregnant woman. The IRA apologised. Sinn Féin called it a monumental error. The rural campaign kept going. One surviving Loughgall scout described it as settling the score. It was 8 for 8. The SAS kept running counter-ambushes, and each one re-ran the Loch-GAWL argument. At Drumnachilly in 1988, 2 IRA men were shot dead as they moved to kill an off-duty UDR member. Ambush, annihilation, contested legality. The template repeated without resolving anything. Loch-GAWL station itself was attacked again. In October 1990, a van bomb demolished much of the building, injuring 7 officers. The station the SAS had defended in 1987 was largely destroyed by the same method 3 years later. The legal aftermath stretched into the 21st century and is still moving. The 1998 Human Rights Act made Article 2 enforceable in British courts, but couldn't be applied backwards. In Ray McCurr, the House of Lords ruled that deaths before the Act's commencement fell outside its reach, which is why the Loch-GAWL families were still pushing through European channels years later. The 1995 inquest verdict was upheld in 1996, then reopened in 2015. The European Court's 2001 judgment gave the families a procedural victory, and nothing more. The HET's 2011 finding gave the pro-SAS reading official backing. As recently as 2025, the British government moved to restore the Loch-GAWL inquests under the Legacy Act controversy, and veterans groups accused ministers of recasting special forces as criminals. This argument has outlived most of the people who started it. Now the limitation. The conversation was measured at its edges, not its whole. One reading of the threads, 50 comments, read closely, 608 engagements between them, shows argument dominating the rest. The categories that pull emotional weight, Brave and Adams, drew 161 and 42 engagements respectively. Even the raw counts refuse to agree. One count of the threads finds 112 comments, another finds 140. The gap is part of the record. It can't be fully reconciled. None of this makes the numbers useless. It makes them limited. They measure the temperature of one argument, at one moment, through an imperfect lens. They can't settle a moral or legal question. Engagement is a proxy for emotional intensity, not for truth. A comment can collect 85 engagements and still be wrong. So what broader conclusion can the available evidence actually support? The narrow one. The one the violin comment got right by accident. The IRA unit lost the operation. The SAS read the pattern, laid the trap, and annihilated the attacking force. Even then, the bomb detonated and destroyed the station. The attack wasn't stopped, but the men who carried it out were killed to the last. Operationally, the IRA lost the engagement. What the evidence does not support is the leap from that fact to a verdict. The moral question, whether the 8 deserved to die, remains contested between the weapon's murderous history and the 2 unarmed dead. The legal question remains contested between the HET's finding of justification, a DPP decision to prosecute no one, and a European court judgment that found the investigation unlawful and said nothing decisive about the shootings. And the campaign didn't end at Loughgall. The Brigade killed 8 soldiers at Ballygawley 14 months later, and the station itself was bombed again in 1990. Victory is evidence of an operational result. It isn't automatically a verdict on deservingness, legitimacy, morality, or lawfulness. On the evidence available, the counts that can't reconcile, the documented legal dispute, an unresolved rumour about Gerry Adams, and 2 questions the record can't answer, the only conclusion that survives scrutiny is the narrow one. The IRA lost the operation. Whether the SAS was right remains open. If this kind of forensic history is what you're looking for, subscribe. There's more where this came from.